Who's ready to join in on the cluster with me and join Queen Vexus and the rest of the members of the cluster prime? So that's what I'm talking about for today's character request. I know I haven't put one of these out in a while. I still have a lot of requests to work on and in between, and this series is going to continue even with Nickelodeon Kart Racers 3 out, and I'll be still playing this game in between as well. And just during the downtime while we await more character news and whatever they're up to for the developers themselves for getting the crossplay, which I'd like to see soon, I'm going to be bringing out multiple characters and even my own universe pack that's going to come back as well, and that still continues. So that's my own little series alongside of this with the character requests that you guys want to see. So I make my own universe packs of different variety of worlds and different characters from Nick Jr. characters as well, and many others that they could possibly be able to get in to the game for Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl. But today is all about Queen Vexus. We're going to be talking about her tonight. I really have a strong chance and a strong feeling that she has a good chance to get in. Why? Let's open up the roster and we'll start talking about the characters so you guys can, and I'll share my ideas. And just as usual, you don't have to watch the full video. All of my ideas and all I'm going to talk about and mention in this particular video is going to be listed in the description, just like all the other characters with Kreskin, Jimmy Neutron, who I think is going to be the next characters. Potentially Jimmy Neutron and Kreskin for Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl. I'm hyped to see how they play. Jimmy Neutron is in Nickelodeon Kart Racers 3. He looks amazing. The voice lines can be similar and be implemented into this game. I think he can get in pretty soon as well to join Vexus, and that's what we're talking about for today. And
select your fighter.
We're just going to keep it on the roster. So Rocco is our newest character. He's been out for a couple weeks, basically, and for the fall season, or autumn, whatever you want to call it. He's so much fun to play, and the first universe pack is complete. Seems like they have more up their sleeve that we don't know. I wish I knew. I would love to know what they're up to, and I'm really excited to see what else they bring to the table and what other surprises they have in store for us. So for this particular video, we're just going to keep it on Genie, and you can see her skin. This is one of the best costumes that's in the game. And Queen Vexus is from My Life as a Teenage Robot. I grew up watching this show, and as well as the other shows that you see in the game, Ninja Turtles, SpongeBob, and many older shows like Kablam, Real Monsters, Kenan and Kel from live action shows, As Told by Ginger, and many more that were around way before My Life as a Teenage Robot came out and became a real thing. So Queen Vexus is from her world, and she's the main arch nemesis, or basically the main villain and or antagonist from this show. So let's start talking about her backstory so people can get to know the character. And just like I mentioned, joining the Cluster Prime, she is from this particular group, and she's the queen of this particular faction of the Cluster Prime, which is in a completely different planet, a whole different planet in comparison to the Earth we live in. You know, the Earth, the real life Earth with the human race. So she was the reigning monarch of the Cluster Prime and the leader of the cluster. And that's who Queen Vexus basically is. Genie Wakeman's main villain in the show, if you watched it before. And just to share more, her major goal was to take over the Earth and create a better future for the Earth and Cluster Prime together. So she was trying to take over the human race and just completely be able to have control over everything. And just thinking about that goal, it makes me think about the monsters from Real Monsters, going back to the show with Ablina, Ickis, and Crumb. They were attending Monster Academy to be able to learn how to scare the humans. So they all, it almost it sounds similar, but they weren't trying to take over the human world or take over the Earth. They were trying to learn how to scare the human race, going to Monster Academy. Ablina and all the others in company attending that particular facility. So now, but in regards to this show, her objective was to take over the world in the Cluster Prime to rule and reign supreme. So that was that's the basic backstory that I wanted to really share with everybody that's going to be watching this tonight. And speaking of the Cluster Prime, just like I mentioned, just to start with the stages, It's the only stage that fits the character. It's the only stage that's more ideal. And let's just select her real quick. Let's put this on.
Jenny.
Does it let me? Oh, just pick somebody random.
Sandy.
Oh, Sandy. Crazy.
Select your arena.
And I wanted to bring this up. Since we're talking about the stages, just to get on into it. So we already have Trey Merton Joyride, but this is part of the Earth. This has nothing to do with the Cluster Prime. They can come out with Cluster Prime as an additional stage to be implemented. Doesn't it look like it needs more, and definitely has more to offer? And Tremerton is really good because it's just like it says, it's a joyride. It's taking you all across the city. They can definitely have Cluster Prime in the background, or we can battle inside the headquarters itself. And that's why I came up with this stage. This is the best stage for Queen Vexus, or Vexus for Nickelodeon All-Star Ball, the home planet of the cluster, where these guys basically are able to teleport their way and create these rifts to find their way back, well, to find their way to the Earth and then get back to their home world. So they create these rifts to teleport, so they go between Cluster Prime and the planet Earth. So I thought that'll be a nice stage, and you can look it up right now. It's a nice background, and I can really picture it in this game. If they only got Tremerton from planet Earth for Genie's hometown, they could definitely get Vexus to be able to be represented in the game as a villain, just going back.
Select your brawler.
The roster itself doesn't really have many villains. See what I'm saying? So they don't have the villains. They're lacking on villains. Zim is a protagonist and antagonist, but you only have one major villain. When you really think of it, when you look at all the characters in the game right now, it's just Shredder, who's always trying to go after the turtles and shut them down. But just everybody else on the roster, they're not antagonists. They're all heroes defending the Earth as the Avatar. Heroes always on funny adventures, going on adventures of their own, and they all have different goals. Ghost busting, like with Ghostbusters, he's gonna catch them all because he's Danny Phantom. He's catching all the ghosts that try to get into the human world to keep them out and stop. He's doing whatever he can to stop them. You got heroes like Danny Phantom running up on the roster right now, but it's just too many heroes. So that's why I think Vexus probably has a good chance, and you already got the rights of Genie Wakeman, or basically My Life as a Teenage Robot. You can get another character. Why not her main villain? Why not the main villain from the show, who continues to come back after her and keep on trying to get her to join the Cluster Prime, Queen Vexus, to fit the situation? So that's just a little idea for the stage, and I think she's going to be a good fit for this game. But now let's get on to the alternate costumes. I did some research for this, and little did you guys know, and maybe you probably already knew this, Vexus is the master of disguises. And I selected a particular disguise, well, Vicky, that she was being called in the actual show. She looks so different from her original form. And what I found out, it's a redesign where she looks green and black. You'll be able to see it when you guys click on the video. You can even look it up. I didn't even know. The redesign from the show is green and black. This design was changed after she got banished from the Cluster Prime. So she's going to look completely different. So I thought, why not have that as an alternate costume? You got Hot Rod Genie. And some of y'all probably know, maybe someone out in the comments can clarify, and maybe you've seen this design before, but some people were saying how it didn't really make sense because they just randomly just changed it out of nowhere. So she doesn't look how she used to. Some people prefer this design, the redesign of the green and black, instead of the yellow, green and black form that she has when she was already queen, or reigning queen, part of the Cluster Prime at the time prior to her getting banished from the Cluster Prime. So I thought that'll be an ideal alternate costume. I could not find any other costumes and think of any other costumes that could fit her. They go ahead and play around with the colors, but I think this is a more ideal, and they could put Vicky as an alternate costume for it, or just a redesign to get the costume into the game. because most of these characters only got one costume, and just looking it up, I didn't want to bother putting all those other disguises. It just wouldn't fit her moveset. See what I'm getting at? So she was able to disguise herself as students and different things in different forms. She can take on different forms as a master of a disguise or the master of disguises, but those disguises wouldn't fit as an alternate costume. Because it's just a little weird having her move, and when the gameplay comes out and she starts moving with her moveset and on the battlefield, when the battle begins and the fight starts, she's just not gonna, it's just gonna look weird for an alternate, a disguise, and it wouldn't match her moveset. So I thought her redesign, or Vicky with the green and black design, would be a better look for her. So that's all I really came up with, but I wanted to share what I came up with and what I found with you guys with the alternate costume, and I really think it'll be more ideal because it was just some kind of surprise change in her design, and I didn't even notice. I watched the show, but I don't even remember this design until I did some digging. But now we're gonna move on to the taunts and animations, and just for some taunts that I came up with, since they have voice lines in the game, and kind of find out, Cree Summers was the voice of Vexus. I didn't even notice. Doesn't she play Susie? I could be wrong, but she could reprise her role as Vexus. So the devs can probably get her to play the character again. But I personally don't mind if it's someone new. It could be an original. Whether or not it's an original voice actor doesn't really concern me, as long as they can get the character in. And I think she'll be a good fit. But let's start. Vexus with her iconic laugh. When I was watching some clips, you can watch some of the clips here on YouTube as well. You can hear her laugh, where she has that evil iconic laugh when she's when everything's going according to plan. It'll be fun. It's just fun to hear that in the game, and you just spam it. That'll be really funny. Try to tease the opponent. She always tried to get Ginny Wakeman to join the cluster, so she say, "Join the cluster." And there's some other things that I found, just some quotes that could be added into the arcade. She says, I am its queen, and you're about to become one of my loyal subjects. She can say that. And then some other kind of quotes I ended up finding from watching some of the clips. She said, I don't want to be your president, I want to be your queen. And she looked a little bit different at the time, but she was in another disguise. But that disguise, when she was disguised as a student in Ginny's class, or in Ginny's schools, it just doesn't look ideal. So that's why I didn't really put it in as an alternate costume. But let's move on. She says, soon you'll join the cluster the cluster family. She could say something like that. And there's some more to share. They can add these into the voice lines, just for some additional ones. Might be too many. There's so many things that she says, but I added additional ones. She said, so you dismantled a handful of my drones, but we are Legion. But that can cut it short. And say, we are Legion. And there's some other ones that's iconic. One day soon you will join us, and together we will enslave the human race. She said this to Ginny, and she's been so focused on trying to get her. And there's some other ones. Robots of Earth, throw off your shackles of servitude. The cluster has come to liberate you. Destroy the flesh warrens. But those are just some iconic quotes. Don't those sound cool? So I just did some research to find that out for the character itself. So they can implement it as an arcade. They could put it in as part of the fight and some of the winning animations. It's just some ideas for them, for the character and what she can say. She definitely deserves that laugh. She can laugh at the end when you win, get that W. It'll be really fun. But now we're gonna wrap up with the moveset, and with these characters, I wanted to, each time I make some of these movesets for the characters, I just want them to make sense. So I did some more research on the character and what she can do. And since she's, just like I finished talking about a little bit earlier, she's a master of disguises. So as a master of a disguise, I put that actual ability in one of her moveset. And I'm curious to see what you guys think about her abilities and what you guys think about my moveset ideas that I came up with her. And just to start, the first episode that she really made an appearance in was called Hostile Makeover, and I actually used that same name, Hostile Makeover, for a actual offensive move for her style, as a tribute to her first appearance from the name. or the episode name, Hostile Makeover. And with this attack, she can be able to use her staff with a 3-hit combo. Just how they make the noises in this game. It's fun. So she can attack with her staff with a series of combos, with a 3-hit combo for a basic standard attacks. And then some other a projectile attack that I came up with. She can tap into the power of her staff from the show and emit sound waves that can travel across the stage to stun Rocco and all the other characters or whoever else she's fighting. If it's a one-on-one, you're online, you'll be able to slow down your opponent, leave them vulnerable, and knock them away when you paralyze them if they can just so happen to run into one of these supersonic waves to really be able to stun them. So supersonic waves, a projectile attack for Vexus to be able to stun or basically paralyze the enemy for a brief period of time. And some kind of move with I selected the cluster. Since she's part of the cluster prime, why not implement them in the moveset? So I wanted to really be unique with this this particular idea and basically add them, the cluster minions, the cluster alliance that I selected for this attack name, where Vexus can call upon her loyal servants of the cluster to cause havoc on the battlefield. And some other people have mentioned some other assist characters and stuff like that, but see how Rocco came out, he has Spunky in his moveset, and it's funny that I thought about adding him. I put Spunky in the moveset for my own ideas from a while back before he even came out. Since Rocco can use Spunky, why not have Vexus be able to call upon some of her loyal servants of the Cluster Prime to get in on the action? So with Cluster Alliance, Vexus can call upon her loyal servants of the Cluster Prime to join in the battle. And just to add on to it, so I didn't just want to put that and leave it that way so it sounds so basic, the clusters, the little cluster minions, they can swarm the player to inflict continuous damage per second. And then to wrap up, to close out the attack, you get them off. You got to try to get them off before they... It's just some kind of little idea. So the player is a little bit distracted with the clusters or members of the cluster prime or her loyal servants getting in the way. They'll get frustrated in the fight. So instead of focusing on you, they're going to try to get the player is going to be encouraged to get the clusters or the swarm of servants off of you before it's too late, before they can snare you into some kind of energy web. So I try to make it realistic from the show, because they do that kind of stuff, and the clusters are always really obeying her every command. So I thought this would be golden for Vexus. I hope y'all like this idea, and I think this is my favorite move, one of my favorite moves, and then I'm gonna get into the disguise and her recovery as well that I came up with. So I think this is one of my favorite moves that I think will be cool to see, to be able to summon members of the cluster prime, to get involved in a fight. And since Vexus can fly, I just put flight. So Vexus can fly for some kind of ability to fly. I just put flight in there. So Vexus can fly for a limited amount of time to avoid crowds and break falls. So if you're up in a 4-player free-for-all, you can play keep away. You need to recuperate, or you just want to wait until everybody gets a little bit weaker and more launchable to be able to knock off the stage for more of a knockback influence. You can just be able to fly away, but just so the player won't keep on running away like Superman, something like that. And the other players out there that can probably fly with some of these characters, most of these characters can't really be able to glide in the game. So Vexus can be the first one to really do that. I'm trying to think of anyone who can glide. Just looking at the roster, I don't think anyone can. So Vexus can be the first of many to be able to fly for a limited amount of time. So I added a cooldown period. So the cooldown period to apply, so the player can't just keep on running away and flying away. You can only be able to fly every so often, and then it just goes on the cooldown period, and then you'll have to rely on your recovery move to be able to get away. And that's what I'm going to get into in just a few seconds. But I just thought that it would be really cool to really be able to add this. I could have put a little bit of a flight attack or some kind of aerial attack where she could rush you and dive down on you. Maybe they can add that too, but I didn't put that in my moveset. So I just put it as another additional ability that she can use to be able to fly around. And if you want to get away from your opponent and just try to set them up, fly, and then you can just be able to bring out the cluster alliance or the cluster prime to get involved in the fight to distract them. It can really be a good combo. And this particular move, the Queen Disguise that I selected, since she's a master of disguises, I didn't want to leave that out because she specializes in that, so I put it in my moveset. Vexus being a master of disguises, she will be able, the player, whoever he or she will be able to create another version of Queen Vexus to bring out onto the field to distract the enemy for a limited amount of time. So she's going to stay out for a few seconds, for a good while. She'll stay out for just a few seconds just to fit that balancing, so they don't stay out the whole time. They'll go away after a few seconds and just disappear. But the player will be able to the player will be able to summon and create another disguise of the Queen Vexus, so you battling two of them. So they're gonna look the same, and this decoy is gonna be on you. Maybe that's too overpowered. Hopefully it's not, because you'll bring out a disguise of Queen Vexus and then just bring out the cluster alliance to really spam the opponent. But that's just gonna make her even more dangerous. So you don't want to let her do that. But that's why they can implement a cooldown period with potentially the cluster alliance and the cluster prime backup or assist characters to get involved in the fight, so that way the player can't spam and you can only use the disguise every now and then as well. So she probably seems like she's gonna have like 3 different cooldowns with the flight, the ability to fly, so it's balanced, so she's not too overpowered. And then the cluster, and then the cluster prime alliance, and then her ability to bring out a disguise of herself to get involved in the fight. So the player is going to really be confused to tell who is who. They're going to be forced to hit that decoy. See what I'm saying? So it'll be really awesome to really see that implement in the fight. And last but not least, Space Vortex, where Vexus can create a portal or some kind of wormhole to teleport back onto the stage. I selected that for a recovery. I didn't want to be all basic with just the ability to just fly. She could just fly back onto the stage. That'll be a recovery. Why not a Space Vortex, the same vortex and that sort of kind of rift that they create that she creates from the show itself to be implemented into the game. So I thought that'll be really something more unique for a recovery for Queen Vexus, and I think a lot of people are really like that. But I'm really interested in hearing what you guys think about this moveset. I had so much fun working on this, and I can't wait to work on more of these characters, and it's just fun. And I learned some more things about Queen Vexus that I did not know, and just especially with the whole redesign sort of situation and them changing her design after she got banished from the cluster prime. So that was something brand new that I ended up finding out. But a main villain like Queen Vexus coming up to join the alliance of Shredder, we can have one Ninja Turtles. We can just do something like that. 2v2, Leonardo and Genie versus Shredder and Vexus. That's gonna be fire. So I would love to see that. And you just don't have enough villains in the game. So Queen Vexus is definitely an iconic Nickelodeon villain people love. And it's great to see that it came up in this character request series. So I had fun putting it together. Let me know what you guys think about this moveset. And I think that she can get in. I really think she can get in. There's no way that she can't. You already got Genie. Why not put Queen Vexus in to join the roster?